Welcome back and Happy New Year. Let's talk chassis rentals. As you know, a container cannot move without its wheels, and that is where the chassis comes in. 90% of the time, in order to do drayage shipments, you're gonna need to have a chassis or the wheels. The other 10%, carriers are using flatbeds and step decks, and sometimes the containers are already on chassis, so you don't have to rent the chassis because it's covered by the customer. But if you're in that 90% and you need to rent or reserve a chassis from the chassis pool, this video is for you. Let's go. So if you don't have your own chassis, you've got two options. One, you can do a monthly lease with one of the chassis providers, or you can do a daily rental from the chassis pool. If you decide to do a monthly lease with a chassis provider like DCLI, Milestone, Track, FlexiVan, there's several of them out there. You can lease one chassis or 10 chassis. And it's normally cheaper than the chassis pool itself. So I'll do another video on the pros and cons of leasing a chassis, but it can sometimes be cost effective and save you some money if you're doing drayage shipments on a regular basis consistently. So the other option, if you don't have your own chassis, is to do a daily rental from the chassis pool. The largest chassis reservation system is called CCM Shipments, and they handle chassis reservations across the United States. So in order to book or reserve a chassis through CCM Shipments, you first have to have an active UIIA account. And then you want to have at least one chassis equipment provider on your approved equipment provider list. If you're not sure if you have them on your list, just log into your UIIA account and go through your approved equipment providers, and you're looking for any of the chassis providers like DCLI, FlexiVan, Track, Milestone. If you have at least one of them on your approved equipment provider list, that's step one. So step two is actually registering with CCM Shipments. You would go to ccmshipments.com, go through the registration. It'll ask for the basic information like your company information, your contact information, and then most importantly, your SCAT code, because they will connect your SCAT code to your chassis booking or reservation. They will also ask you for your chassis provider agreement. On the UIIA account, you have at least one approved chassis provider, and the agreement that you have with that chassis provider is what they will ask for you to upload in order to create your new account. After you complete your registration and you upload your agreement with your chassis provider, you will receive an email with your username and password, and then you will have access to the CCM Shipments reservation system. Let's take a look at how to actually book a chassis. Once you log into your account on ccmshipments.com, you want to go to the booking system. You will then see the chassis pool that you are registered with. Once you select it, you'll see all of the regions or areas that you can book a chassis. You can also see how many 20, 40, and 45-foot chassis are available in each of those regions. Let's select Charleston. Within Charleston, there are many locations for picking up a chassis. You just want to make sure that there's chassis available. As you can see, some of these locations have 0 for the 20, 40, and 45-foot chassis. But there are some here at the Rio Chassis Depot. This is the actual booking page. You will need your equipment group, which is the size of the chassis, 20, 40, or 45. You will also need your ship line, whether it's Maersk or CMA. You will enter that here. And then, of course, you want to enter how many chassis you want to reserve. Then click Save. Now your chassis has been reserved. And if you notice in the top left, this is your reservation number. This number you will need when you go to the chassis pool to pick up the chassis. As you are booking your chassis, you will receive an email confirmation after each booking. Now that you know how to book a chassis, there's 4 things to keep in mind. Number 1 is you need to know the ship line before you go to book your chassis. Whether it's a MERS container, a CMA container, you need the ship line information before you book your chassis. Number 2 is to book early. It's a chassis pool. There are several carriers in the chassis pool, so they are booking their chassis first thing in the morning. So book early. Otherwise, there may not be any more chassis in the pool. Number 3 is chassis reservations are good for 1 day. So as you could see that when you book a chassis for July 2nd, it expires at midnight on July 2nd. So when you book your chassis first thing in the morning, make sure you go to the location you've chosen to pick up your chassis that day. And then finally, as you saw, there is a booking reservation number. So make sure whoever is picking up that chassis, if you're giving it to a driver, that they have that booking reservation number. Otherwise, when they get to the location, they won't be able to pick up the chassis. I know that was a lot of information, but you can pause, rewind, whatever you need to do to make sure you understand the process of booking a chassis from a chassis pool. If you have questions, you can leave them in the comments below. But I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.